Welcome to Spiritual Rockstar Podcast, where world-changing spiritual entrepreneurs come to deeply awaken the power within to bring forth their greatest purpose, to create massive awakened impact for millions of souls around the planet, while enjoying being in tune with all life and real wealth in all aspects of their lives. I'm your host, Daniel John Hanneman. And welcome, everybody. So glad to have you here with us today. Another Spiritual Rockstar Podcast show. So go ahead and hit that subscribe button and just have fun. Have fun. When you hit subscribe, it means you're ready to have some more fun, ready to rock it. So I'm so grateful. I'm going to be interviewing today Christian De La Huerta. I'm still learning how to pronounce his last name. Okay, awakening the soul of power. What an amazing topic. We're about to get into it. Do you want to meditate and make money? Let it be simple. Let it be easy. Let it be fun. Go to yoursacredpurpose.com and get your free Meditate, Make Money meditation today. All right, so let me tell you about Christian. All right, so I'm really impressed with his heart and his ferocity within. Okay, it's a gentle ferocity, but it's his ferocity I feel inside him. I like that about him. So he's an award-winning author, an acclaimed speaker, and he has spoken in many various settings, including universities, conferences, corporate trainings, spiritual communities, and the TEDx stage, which I found very impressive. Audiences find Christian's message particularly relevant in these times. Christian also practices as a spiritual coach and leadership development consultant whose work ranges from individuals and couples and private practice to major corporations and nonprofits. His latest book, Awakening the Soul of Power, has been endorsed by people like Gloria Estefan, so you might want to check it out. So, Christian, I'm just so honored to have you here today.
Daniel, thanks so much for having me on this show. I really appreciate the opportunity. I love what you're up to, and in doing a little bit of research on your website, we have so many points of commonality, so I'm looking forward to the conversation.
Awesome. Me too. Me too. Well, one of the usual places I like to kind of really start an interview is I always ask almost the same question every time. I'm like, so how did you get to where you're sharing this topic, awakening the soul of power? Tell us about that. What brought you here to share about this today?
It's interesting because that was one of the parts in your reading through your bio material that I resonated with. That because I, like you, my adolescence was like one long depression with suicidal fantasies, and grew up always feeling different, like I just didn't belong. And I also grew up my first 10 years in a communist regime in Cuba. And for your audience who may not quite understand what that means, like it's ironic that I'm teaching and writing about personal power, because in that environment there is no personal power. The state owns you and knows everything about you and tells you what to do. So it's a very top-down power over structure or power. I'm also, my family was very, very Catholic growing up, so another hierarchical structure of power over, and system that tells you what to believe and what's right and what's wrong. And so for me to be writing about this stuff is interesting, and yet I feel like that's part of the power of the message. Is I love that phrase that you coined, the ferocity within. I love that, because that is how I feel about soulful power. It's a power that's inside of us that doesn't need to prove anything to anybody, that is humble, that's about service, about making a difference, and it's authentic, it's real, and in some ways way more powerful than what we tend to think of, what the world thinks of power, which is ego power, and it's about externals and hierarchy and power over. It's about domination and fear and force and control and manipulation. And the times are ready for us to relate to power in a different way.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, I love that. Wow. Yeah, it's like so many of the people are listening into, I'm sure can resonate to some level or degree. Definitely, probably universally, people are listening to the show have issues with power. We have issues with power. So when why do we react so much when whoever the politician that triggers us, whoever it might be, it doesn't matter, fill in the blank. It's like we're like, oh, it's because it has to do something with our relationship with that person, of course, but also with power. So so yeah, that cage has been rattled a lot as it's gotten stronger and stronger, it seems like, with all the media, that we get access to. It's like all the echo chambers and everything. And I don't experience it as much myself anymore, because I'm just kind of like, okay, I don't want to be in that anymore. So I've disconnected myself from a good portion of it, I think, now, but I'm sure it still exists out there. So I feel like with your journey, I want to go back to that. Like, yeah, for my journey, all our journeys are different with power, right? So a lot of times I tune into people, I tune into past lives. So I say, yeah, you were a bruiser of power in one life, and then you were like the sense of a victim of being power over you. And like we play all these different roles, like even in this lifetime, like some people have been victims of the sense of power over, whether it's in your personal life, or and then also in the sense of the collective. Some of us experience it more oppressive, like yourself, like you mentioned, and maybe not as much in some other scenarios. And there's so many factors, but we all have in our soul's journey. All the people I've tuned into, we've all experienced these different dimensions of what we call power, the sense of power. And I love what you shared already about, like, we feel like okay, I'm reading between the lines. Okay, you didn't literally say this, but you probably felt like, I have a lot of real power, but it's like you feel awkward with it. You don't know what to do with it. Like, I think that's that's kind of how it shows up for me sometimes, on my path, the sense of the idea that, oh, I've got power now. How do I deal with that power? I don't want to be like these bullies in the world. I want to have power over, but I don't want to be really too humble either. And that seems like it's a little too tame. And I was trying to find this relationship with power. We have this big journey, and I'm wondering a little bit if you could share a little bit about your own personal experience of navigating that journey with power.
Yeah, I love that. I love the way you frame that, because I think most of us have that ambivalent, conflicted relationship with power. We want it, but we're afraid of it. We're cautious of it, about it. And I think at the core of that fear is what you're pointing to, which is that we fear we might cause harm, we might abuse it. And no wonder. All we got to do is turn on the news any given day to witness at least one abuse of power. And then add to that the fact that we were conditioned to believe that power is a bad thing, right? With quotes like, power corrupts, and absolute power corrupts absolutely. What they forgot to tell us is that quote by Lord Acton was referring specifically to political power, not the interpersonal human power that you and I are talking about. And so add to that mix the fact that we've been conditioned to be afraid of our emotions. We've been conditioned to run from conflict. We hate confrontation. And so when you put all that into the mix, what happens is that we end up giving our power away. And our innate power that no one can give to us, no one can take it away. We are the only ones who can give it away. And the tragic part is that we give it away for kind of lame reasons. We settle for less. We play small. We hide our light under a bushel. We end up saying yes when inside we really feel no, in all for a false sense of security, for an illusion of acceptance, and for morsels of pseudo love. And so it's not an effective strategy. And I can relate to all that in my own life, to all those examples of giving away my power multiple times. And here's what got me thinking about this power. I have an older sister, and I'm one of 9 kids, and very Catholic family. So my older sister, who's about 2 years older than I am, when we were kids, she used to boss around not only the 9 of us, but the entire neighborhood of like 15, 20 kids. And in a very natural way. She's like one of these natural born leaders. And, she would say, yeah, let's go do that. And we would all say, yeah, let's all do that. And something happened to her when she hit puberty. Like, I don't know if somebody told her something or she just picked up through osmosis that women didn't behave that way. And she turned that power off. And she, took on this other kind of saintly persona. And so I never quite understood that. And so the book is for everybody, but it has a particular message for women, because when I look at the world, there is such a huge imbalance between power, between the genders, and not only between the genders, but inside each one of us, because we all have those access to those masculine and feminine energies, which it's what the universe is made of. So we're part of the universe, much of the surprise to some human beings. So we also all of us have masculine and feminine energies. And we've been suppressing the feminine. We've been shutting it down. We've made it something that's weakness, when in reality it has nothing to do with any of that. If you want to talk power, let's talk about the power of creation of life that exists in a female body. So that's powerful. And so the reason that has a particular message about women's empowerment is that I think when women are in 50% of power, and when we all find this balance between the masculine and the feminine within us, if we expect for that to happen in the world, it's got to start within. Then we're going to have a very different relationship to all of it, to poverty and hunger and to war and wealth distribution and social justice, and even how we treat the environment. And of which, by the way, COVID is a symptom of that unhealthy relationship, more of a patriarchal, hierarchical, screw it or kill it relationship to nature, like rape and pillage relationship to nature. And COVID is a symptom of that unhealthy expression. And so I think that it's critical for all of us to figure out a different way to step into our power, to step into power in a way that is not hierarchical, that is not about pressing somebody down, pushing them down in order for us to prop ourselves up and feel powerful. And that when we do that, we'll find personal fulfillment and we'll have the kind of relationships that can actually have a chance at working, and we'll see a very drastic change in the world.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, so I like the COVID thing to me again. I always like when I'm being on my A game here on the show, I've got to like, wait a minute, COVID. I know the narrative. Like a lot of us say, it's a wake up call. Totally is. I mean, oh my God, COVID, what a wake up call. Now, is COVID a symptom of this bad relationship with nature? We don't know for 100%, but in my opinion, we don't know. It's how I look at it. We don't know. How do we know how it got started? Is what I would say on that. But what it does show us is how much something like something that however it's happening, however it was created, or however it came to us, had us really take a deeper look inside ourselves, and then take a deeper look at the way we are in relationship with so many things, including ourselves and nature and the world. And for some people it took them more unconscious, so they felt more less power, less but it's like kind of they're propped up maybe from their old patterns, right? So but maybe took them another direction. For other people it's been a wake-up time, and definitely it's given us a chance to see the effects we're having on the environment, by looking at the effect that had by people needing to stay home and everything. And we've heard, most people in these circles have all heard about that thing, how it was such a great thing. Like things, they're opening up, things are getting clean again, like wow, things are improving. And my own relationship with the earth is hugely deepened during this time, and I know there's a long way to go for me. I mean, I've become so disconnected from the earth, from towards the beginning of my life. I played outside, right? And Like you get more and more, you get indoctrinated, you're inside more and more. And like, what is real power? What is soulful power? Like when we take it back to that, like, what can we say about that? Because that's what your book's about. So what is really, like, we talk about all this different kind of power, but what is really the soul of power?
Yeah, great question. Well, yeah, one of the ways in which I started answering that is that there are different kinds of power. And so most of us tend to relate to power. Like we tend to think people who have money, people who are famous, people who have some kind of role and up in a hierarchy, whether it's the military or some governmental institution or a corporate setting. Um, but the thing about all those kinds of powers that they're outside of us, right? They're based on externals. So they're fickle, right? Here today, gone tomorrow, as many people discovered through COVID. Like you're talking about many of the lessons, if we pay attention, is like so many people whose identity was connected to whatever job they have, and suddenly, boom, and have to face the question, where are we going to place our trust? And so there's a different kind of power, so I think about, so worldly power is always has an agenda. It is hierarchical. It's about power over, it's about force, fear, and domination. It's always trying to get something for itself, and it's self-aggrandizing, so it's always blowing itself up to seem that it is more powerful than it is. Whereas if you look at what I call soulful power or inner power, or spiritual power, whatever you want to call it, it's humble, right? It's powerful, and yet it doesn't need to prove anything to anybody. It's more about service rather than self-serving. And I think about the humility of a Gandhi or a Gandalf in Lord of the Rings. In their simple monastic robes, their sandal feet, you would never know that the level of power that they hold until it's necessary. And then watch out, like Gandhi brought the British Empire to its knees when it was at its highest point in terms of global reach, without ever shooting a single gun or landing a single punch. So that's what I mean about soulful power.
Yeah. And it's so funny that, that's something, he's one of the constant references I make, and someone I channeled intensively for a long time, not so much these days, but because I saw the movie, remember, back in, what was it, the 80s or something? I think it was in the
Yeah.
80s, right? Ben Kingsley, and I went to go see that movie, and it was the only movie I think I ever went to where it had an intermission. It was so long. Like, it's like, even by today's standards, it was a really long movie. I mean, it was like 3 hours, I think, or something like that. So anyway, I just remember going, and as I was like, I don't know, I was about 11, 12 or something. I don't remember how old I was, but around that age. And I just remember you would think I'd just be bored as a kid, right? It's something like that. I was so blown away. It's like, it
Yeah.
spoke to my soul so deeply. And part of my journey, and then I'd love to hear for you and then what we see for others, but like, I mean, part of my journey has been like, I felt like I have all this power. I used to always relate to, like, when He-Man as a kid would say, I've got the power, or whatever. Like, and but I mean, I just knew that I knew, like, yeah, I've got the power too. I know what he's talking about. I've got the power too. And I would want to go like dominate people probably at that time, although I got into those energies at time in my life. But I felt that. And then you see someone like Gandhi, and you see this sense of power, and it's like, all my life I've been trying to figure out this, how to work with this soul of power, really. I mean, really been looking at how do I deal with this power? Because I mean, I think we're all this powerful, but I have this experience of where I could just be like, okay, I mean, I swear to Christian, I don't need to prove it to anybody. Maybe we're all this powerful, probably, but I could say I'm shutting down the power grid of this country. I probably could. I just like, that's it, bang. I could just send it, okay, cancel that. Like I always do the cancel thing, because I know the power. Because my family, they should hear me get all worked up about something. And they're like, oh, calm down. Because they know
Right.
what happens when I get worked up and things all start happening. It's like, so I realize a sense of power, and then you sense, this is where I feel, for me anyway, the sense of humbleness needs to come in, because there's so many reasons why that's important. But I'd love for you to talk about that, because like, yeah, I could get drunk with power, like as I have at times in my life, like, I'll manifest anything, bam, bam, bam. And then it's like, you start to realize this is crazy. I'm just, what game am I playing with myself, you know? And then there's the victimhood part, right? Well, I got no power. And you go to the other extreme in your life. I'm no good. I'm just chunk it all in. Take me, God, you know. So yeah, tell us more about like why it's so important to get this healthy relationship with the real power within, and how do we do that? How do we get in the right relationship with that?
Yeah, and that's a great question too. Well, I mean, why? Because we've got to, from a personal level, if we don't find a way to step into our power authentically, what we're risking is a life of soul devouring mediocrity. Right? Because we're going to continue giving our power away. We're going to continue stifling our dreams, our perceptions, our beliefs for that sake of that illusion of security, or those morsels, those crumbs of pseudo love. So that's not sustainable, and it's never going to be fulfilling. And it's ironic because so many of us have been conditioned to believe that that to be all, that to really step into our power, to be all that we can be, that it's arrogant, right? How dare we be so arrogant? But the way that I see it, it's actually the other way around. If we've got innate gifts and talents that were given to us, how dare we hide them? How dare we stick them in, like put them into smaller packages and hide them under a bushel? And how dare we act as if we were less than who we actually are? It's like, especially at this critical time, you could say that we're at a make it or break it point as humanity. The planet will be fine, right? Life will continue. It might take a few million years, but life will continue in some form. Consciousness will continue in some form. Maybe it's going to turn out to be an enlightened cockroach planet. Who knows? Whether we make it, right? That's the question now, because we're just beginning to witness whatever it is that we have unleashed on the environment. And so when we look at it from that perspective, it's all hands on deck. So any of us, listening to this or watching this, who have the slightest inkling, suspicion that we have work to do as teachers, as healers, as activists for change, to support the spiritual revolution that I believe is happening in the world. It's like, this is it. This is the time that we've been waiting for. And so how do we resolve our ambivalent relationship to power? Two ways. One of them is understanding about power. So understanding the differences, so that we can figure out a way that we can claim our power and step into it fully without it needing to cause harm, right? In a way that is a match for who we are inside, in the deepest ways. And there are ways to do that. There are definitely ways to step into power that do not cause harm and that actually support other people and support the collective. And then the other way is whatever work we are guided to do in terms of healing ourselves and discovering who we are. Because the stronger our sense of self, the better that we know ourselves, the less that we become dependent on any kind of external validation. And the stronger our sense of self, then the deeper that we're going to accept ourselves, and the more deeply that we're going to love ourselves. And so the more that we do that, the less that we are threatened by anybody else having power, which is another one of the differences. Worldly power believes that there's a limited amount of it, right? So that your having power takes away from mine. Whereas, from my perspective, from a perspective of worldly power, is like, wait a minute, if I'm in my power, I can handle anything, that anybody else is going to do. I can handle anything that comes my way, and I come at it from that confidence, that place of self-confidence. So I'm not threatened by anybody else having power. I can celebrate other people stepping into their power.
Right.
It's power with rather than power over.
Right. Right. Yeah, I mean, for me, true power is really being connected, being in presence, right? Being in that space, and then allowing ourselves to share ourselves fully with the world, with all of who we are, whether it's steel energy, like I talk about elementals a lot. It could be a fiery energy, steel energy, watery energy, air energy. It doesn't have one tone. I think a lot of the sense of power we see, we look at like, wow, look at how strong they are and how powerful, fiery they are. That's real power right there, baby. And that's just one form of power, though. We have to look at like all the ways that there's people who are meditating, like, I don't know, might be meditating on a mountain. They have incredible power. They're doing incredible things for the world. It might be their path, right, to meditate on that mountain or whatever during that time of their life or what have you. So I think there's so many different types of power, and I think that's why it's hard for people to understand what true power is for them. I think that's where the question mark comes in. What is this power thing all about, right? We see examples of it, say, take control of your life, and sometimes that's the right tone, right? That's the right song track, right? And then sometimes that may be the wrong song track. So I wonder how you help people to kind of figure that out for themselves.
Yeah, and it's not when I talk about worldly power or ego power, in contrast to soulful power or spiritual power, which I get into, of course, much more deeply in the book. I also say that it's not a black and white binary. And it's not to say that worldly power is all bad all the time. Like there are times where worldly power is appropriate, right? The more directive, authoritative kind of power. So, if we're standing in front of a room with hundreds of people and the fire alarms goes off, it's not appropriate to say, okay, you wonderful, gorgeous, beautiful, exquisite beings, how many of you think we should take that exit? Raise your hands. How many of you think we should take that other exit? And it's like, no, it's like, go, right, go, do this, do that. So there is an appropriate use for power.
It's a funny one. Wait a minute, I need to ask my guides. I wait a second.
Right.
I don't know if I'm hearing them yet. Hold on, let me wait.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it is. It's funny, like how people get with when why don't you just let it be easy? I mean, like I'm reading, like, for example, another book like called, it's been around a while now, but the book Blink. I don't know if you've heard of it, but like they show on all these ways how so many of us know what the correct answer to something is within 2 seconds, but usually we know right away. People come with all kinds of stories why they don't know right away, but really it's there. I just need to learn how to, connect with that and just to recognize it. And it's like, no, I always have said that, well, I'm one of those deep, I got this type of way of being and I need it. Maybe it's how you like to make decisions. Maybe there's something to that, but some part of you already knows the answer, Like, my wife, and I don't know if this relates to your topic completely or not, but we're going to find out. But like my wife, we've been looking at different houses, and there's one we're really focused on right now. She showed me another one. She said, "Hey, check this one out." And instantly I knew, like, no. But I said, "Well, let me look at the pictures." Blah, 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 blah. Yeah, okay, no. But I knew right away. It's like, so I think that's power too, right? Like that soulful power, being connect, realize, hey, no, like, just be honest with yourself. What are you getting right away? What's your truth right now? You can always maybe change your mind, but what's the answer you're getting right now? I think that's part of it anyway. What do you say, Christian?
Yeah, without a doubt. You're talking about intuition.
Yeah.
Which of course it's incredibly powerful. And so, so this, what you're pointing to, we don't have time to dive deeply into like really understanding what the ego mind is. But one of the reasons that I use worldly power and ego power interchangeably, it's because that is the way that the world looks at power. And we don't have time again to explain what the ego is in depth, but here's a great metaphor. If you put a baseball in the center of a stadium, that's what the ego is. And the ego is our sense of individual personality. Who we are is actually the stadium. But we've allowed this tiny, tiny, tiny part of who we are to think that it is all who we are, and to make choices, like important, consequential choices about our lives, about our relationships, about our purpose, which I know you're very big on in your teachings and your programs. And we make all these choices from its very small, always limited, and always fear-based perspective. So the example that you're talking about, that sense of just knowing, that's the realm of the stadium,
Yeah.
right? Which is always interconnected, which is connected to it all, to life, to creation, to the life force, to the sacred, whatever you want to call it. And so the problem is that we've gotten confused about who we are, and we think that this tiny, tiny, tiny sense of individual personality is who we are. And so that's why it's so limited. And that's why worldly power, it's always limited by definition. Whereas the other kind of power, which counterintuitively is, it's humble, and it's about love, and it's about making a difference, and it's about service, it's actually way more powerful because it's connected to that much bigger part of who we are.
Yeah, I mean, most people,
which magic and miracles become commonplace.
Right. Right. Absolutely. Oh, totally. Totally. I mean, that's where we talk about synchronicity and everything. Like,
yes.
Hey, I was just thinking about that yesterday, it happened today, you know, like, I mean, it's because it's more, to the way I experience it, it's coming to you and you're paying attention.
Right.
You know, that's how I see it. And rather than, yeah, ego mind says, oh, screw that, I want something even better. And I think we should go that way. Like, like, I'll make that happen. You know, like a lot of times we think that's actually part, oh no, that's metaphysical, strong power. But metaphysics, it's like, yeah, it's metaphysics, it works a certain way, but the ego could get in there and wreak havoc on, the ideas
Yes.
with the metaphysics, right? Like, we can make
Yes.
all this stuff happen. I mean, there's people with worldly power that study metaphysics and try to control things in the direction they want. Oh, I like this metaphysics. We can make whatever we want happen.
Right.
So, yeah.
Right. So that spiritual teachings can be used as weapons.
Yes.
And yeah, that's why it's so important. Like you were like, I was reading through your stuff about the importance of doing our own work, right? You were talking about integrating shadow stuff and dealing with male wounding, and how that was so critically important in your own process of evolution and healing and stepping into your power. And that's so critical to do, because if not, we're coming from all these unhealed past traumas and suppressed emotions that we just never got over and got through, and then we start projecting all that stuff into other people and into our relationships, and create a huge mess. So that, again, that connects to what we're talking about before, that the stronger our sense of self, the more that we know and therefore accept and therefore love ourselves, the less dependent that we become on anyone's validation, and the more free that we are. And we just get to be who we are, wherever we are and whenever, without needing to prove anything to anybody. We just stand free. And that's incredibly powerful.
Yeah, and that's so great, Christian. I'm so glad. I always see everybody that comes into my life, whether it's on this show or anywhere, wherever the timing is, it's always so synchronistic to the current conversation I'm having, right? So I was just talking about some of these things that we're talking about today with others. It's been going on, and it's like just a sense of it's just a sense of like I I have just gone through so much pain, and I gained so much wisdom though through the portal of ego mind power, like, and using spiritual principles. It's like it got me up off my chair and had me feel like I've got power. And then it's like when it crashed down, it showed me its limitations. it's like, oh, I need to sit down and pay attention. There's something deeper here I need to pay attention to, which I always was connected to, but I really needed to get into, right? Really need to go deeper with. And what happened is that, um, it used to be that because I'm a man, because I know this is something you talk about as well, like as a man, and if especially your background too, I mean, I know maybe it's stereotyping, but with Latino, men and stuff, and I'm powerful, I'm a machismo and all that, right?
For
So,
sure.
and so, but even for men overall, and for myself, it's like, yeah, I mean, I'm very sensitive. I'm a very gentle soul at my very deepest nature at one level, and it's like I just trying to find my way was it's just so hard because I just feel like everybody just love each other, just cut it out, like is what I'm
Yes.
aching for underneath. And like finally you're like, fine, I'll play the game. I need to be like this, I need to be like that. Okay, we need to control things. All right, I'll get into that, and what, I should be famous, is that how I matter in the world? That's what you try for. Fine. Then it gets in your subconscious, gets in your basal brain, and it becomes your programming, and like everything's like, okay, if it matches up with who I am really, I believe I should be, and I'm going to line up with that, I'm going to go for it. And it's like, and then finally you have this awakening to this deeper true power that you're talking about, this soul of power. It's like, it says, hey, take a seat, you don't quite got, it's good that you've experienced this power. Now take
Yeah.
a seat. Now listen now. We got some things to look at here now. So, I mean, as a man, it's like, it's a very awkward time for men, isn't it? I
Oh
mean,
my God, yes.
so we're being told, we're definitely being told to take a seat. So tell us about tell us about that from your perspective. Like,
Yeah, no, I think that's really, really important to look at that because, this kind of more patriarchal power over structure, let's call it toxic masculinity, because that's the working term. What's one of the working terms that we have is not serving anybody, right? Including men. Like, of course, the abuse of women in the many unjust ways that have been taking place in the last several thousand years and that are still going on are no longer acceptable, and just like enough, right? Cut it out. But this patriarchal system doesn't work for men either, and here's why. Let's look at the numbers. In this country, men commit suicide 4 times as frequently as women. 70% of the suicides in this country are committed by middle-aged white men, which arguably still control, have most of the power still in this country and in the world. So what's up with that, right? What's not working there? If we look at longevity, women outlive men by 5 years. In this country, globally, by 7 years. So, and to me, part of the reason this is because we've got this twisted definition of what it means to be a man. And that's why I added a chapter in the book about what it means to be a man in the 21st century. It's kind of like we need to rethink and upgrade like our masculinity program, and think about it in different ways. And part of the reason is that we've made the emotions weakness, right? Ever since we were little boys don't cry. The implicit message is like, to cry, to show emotions, it's only little girls do that, and that's weakness. Whereas in reality, emotions aren't weak, they're not strong, they're not good, they're not bad, they're just energy, like everything else. Whether they have a good effect depends on how we relate to our emotions and how we express them. But the thing is, like, what used to be spiritual teaching, that everything is energy, now we know from physics, from quantum physics, that it's true. That means the body is energy. Even though we might feel solid, it's vibration. Emotions are energy. We know from physics, energy cannot be destroyed. So just because we stuff our emotions, for all the reasons that we were talking about at the top of the show, the avoiding conflict, hating confrontation, not wanting to rock the boat, the fear of rejection, all the reasons that we end up saying yes and stuffing our truth, like they don't work because that stuff doesn't go away. It sticks in us. right? And after years and a decade and decades and a lifetime of repressing emotions, we're walking around like emotional cauldrons ready to explode. And then the next unfortunate one rubs us the wrong way and we explode inappropriately and cause harm to our relationships. That's what causes harm to our relationships. Or that energy has to come out one way or another. It's going to start seeping out through physical symptoms, right? And it's going to end up in heart attacks or stomach ulcers or cancer. So we've got to get on top of this relationship to power and find a way of expressing it that is a match for who we are. And we've got to learn how to feel and what we're feeling and how to communicate that. Because to learn that, like to be able to identify what we're feeling and then how to communicate those feelings and our experiences both courageously, because it's always going to take courage, but also responsibly, meaning that we take ownership of our emotions and not blame other people for them, because nobody can make us feel anything, and learn how to communicate gracefully, meaning in a way it doesn't mean wimping out. Gracefully just means in a way that the other person can hear it, rather than pointing the finger, rather than accusing them, or you do this, you always do that. At that point, end the conversation. That's only going to turn it to be an argument between egos. So learning how to feel and how to communicate is nothing short of heroic. It's like we're talking mastery level stuff. The opposite of weakness.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. I mean, the strength that the ego believes it has would be to argue. I'm going to prove I'm right. Like that's its thing. It wants to constantly prove it's right in some way, even if it wants to be a victim. I'm going to prove that I'm a victim. Let me prove it to you. Like it's got whatever story it's running with, right? It's going to keep proving that it's right. And that's so interesting to me that that's what happens. And there's a sense of power in that, but that's not the deeper power we're talking about.
It's pseudo power. It's not real power.
Right.
And you're right. You just pointed to two big qualities of the ego, right? The need to be right.
Yeah.
And like the Course in Miracles says, would you rather be right or be happy?
Yeah.
The ego has such a charge on being right, even at the cost of our happiness and the healthiness of our relationships. And then the other one that you've been speaking about a couple of times, which is huge, is the victimization of the ego. The ego always feels done to, right? Whether it's mom who did this or daddy who didn't do that, or the teacher, the minister, society, sexism, homophobia, racism, as long as we're holding anyone or anything outside of us responsible for our state of being, we just gave our power away. And it's not to rationalize any of that. It's not to excuse anybody's behavior or any system that is less than fair and just. It's not about that. This is about, I'm talking about our freedom. If we want to be free, if we want to step into our power, we've got to pop out of that. And a simple way to do that, well, simple, not easy, right? We can say that one thing we can count on is that life is going to continue throwing curveballs our way. Unexpected stuff that we just didn't see coming. And so there's not a thing that we can do about that. But what we always have a choice about is that no matter what happened in the past, no matter what happens going forward, we always have a choice about how we respond, about how we show up in response to every one of those situations. And when we can hold it in that way, we just popped ourselves out of victim consciousness.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, I mean, like I said, like going back to where some people may have been in their life, and is like, again, like when I said, like, you get all filled with yourself, what you can do, what you can achieve, how hot stuff you are, but underneath you're aching still, like you're still in pain, and for some people you're even more pain than ever, like in some cases, like, well, I'm doing it, but I feel even worse. Like it's exactly the opposite of what they thought it'd be. And so, but it's like, yeah, it's just a whole, for me anyway, like this whole like letting go process. But then what happens for spiritual people are like, Yeah, I'm just gonna let go of everything. Nothing matters. I'm letting go of all my ego power, and I'm letting go of all of it. And then they're just that's all they're doing. They're just constantly saying, "I'm just surrendering. I'm just surrendering." That's all. White light, white light, white light, white light. Like, but what are you doing when you're doing that? You're not willing to feel something. Is what I
Right.
often see. And we have to. This is a big part of what I shared triply so these days is I feel, I don't know if you agree, Christian, I'm sure you probably do, but we have to own our humanity for the spiritual people. You've got to, that's where more of the real power is we have to own or acknowledge at least or whatever you want to embrace or all these words I use, what's going on for us. Like I say this to my students lately that sometimes go to the spiritual, oh, I'm fine, everything's good, it's all and I know something else is going on. And I say, well, if you got kids coming up to you saying, "Oh, I've got problems," oh, no, just go away. You're fine. It's all white light. It's all good, right?
Oh
And you
yeah.
wouldn't do that to a kid, right? I mean, you'd say, "Oh,
Right.
you poor thing. Let's talk." Like, we need to acknowledge what's coming up, right? I mean, we've got to acknowledge our emotions.
Yeah. Yep, yep, yeah. You're absolutely right. At least that's the way that I see it too. And with all due respect to the love and light
Yeah, yeah.
crowd, because ultimately, in the ultimate sense, everything is.
Right.
And at the same time, I wrote a piece a few years ago, and it's a section in the next book, in the second copy of the trilogy, um, that's titled "You Can't Namaste the Shadow Away."
Right.
Right, you've got to be willing to dive in there, and that's why it's the series is called Calling All Heroes, because what we're talking about, it takes work, right? It takes self-analysis. It takes the willingness to go inside and to look at ourselves and figure out why we do the things we do, and look at patterns and where they came from that sometimes have us stuck in relationships that we feel like it's the same boring movie just with a different actor, but I've been here before. So why do I keep attracting a certain kind of person? Why do I keep creating subconsciously certain type of relationships? So being willing to look at that takes work, and it's nothing short of heroic. And like you were talking, like we were talking about you and your case, your willingness to look at in the shadow, it's empowering. Like once we're able to do that work, on the other side of it is freedom. On the other side of it is authentic power that doesn't need to prove anything, because the ego is a micromanager and it is a control freak. But both of those behaviors are fear-based, right? They're whereas once we stand in our authentic power, we can let go authentically, like in our power, not in a namby-pamby new agey kind of way. Like let go in a powerful, trusting way that is very grounded, and that there's nothing new agey about it.
Right. I mean, one of the things as a man is just start to wrap up here soon, but like as a man, one of the things and I talked about it before, but I want to come back to it. And I feel this is true for a lot of women that were finding their power too, like finding their power, exerting their power, getting into their power these days. I feel like the same thing's happening to them, but like what everything we just talked about applies equally to all these women that are like, I'm in my power now. Look out, here I come. I'm going to prove something, right? We got lots of women trying to prove something. And I know it's like I said, it can be part of the ladder for some of it. It happens, right? But it's like eventually you have to realize, like, okay, what's really going on for me? What, like, getting into those emotions and embracing all of ourselves is what I wanted to get to. As a man, like I would have people, because I'm quiet and I'm nice and I feel the love around me. I've got all this, universal love energy in my chart, even and whatnot. Like just got it, that energy. And so people say, "Oh, you're just so gentle. You're such a gentle soul." And like for so long, I just got so mad when people would say that at times. I'd be like, I'd fight it. I'd be like, I'm not just some jealous show. So let me show you who I really am. I'll show you this power. Because I thought they were saying you have no power. You're not manly. You're not, like I thought they were saying all these negative things is how I interpret it rather than a compliment. I'm like, no, it's you don't
Right.
get me. You don't see me. And then I go into this energy that's really just conditioning because I don't think that's well, right?
Right.
And then the more I've embraced just that's true, the more I'm recognizing my true power in so many different ways, including just the natural power of life itself within me, within all life, and being connected with that, and the subtle power, right? We give so much power to, you can think your way through this, you can bam blow those doors open. The simple, what about the wind and the air, all the different kinds of power, right? Like this subtle energy. I remember one of my coaches one time he says, well, you remember, Dan, subtle power is like everything. And it's like the more we can understand the power of the subtle field, I'm just like, oh, I just kind of got this feeling this is going to happen, and we just relax and let it happen. It'll happen, like a lot of times that's the way it works when we're paying attention, when we get connected, when we allow ourselves to be connected, and and then for me, coming back to myself, like for maybe anybody else, if it was one person listening right now, to embrace that you are a gentle soul, is incredible. Like, I mean, I've had students say, I mean, I don't want to, it's not an ego thing, but just to said things like, you're like Jesus or whatever, in their eyes, whatever, but and here I'm fighting that in a way, right? I'm like, no, I'm not like Jesus. I'm way tougher than him. Like it's crazy because I'm fighting something that I think like is not right about me. So it's just very interesting.
Yeah, and it all stems from that misunderstanding of what power is and looks like. Right. So both in the examples that you mentioned of women acting like, I call that the pseudo macho, acting like extra tough, because we think that's what power looks like. And we've seen that. You see it less and less now, but as women are stepping more and more into their power, in the beginning, a lot of them were assuming masculine expressions of it. Yeah. So you can see it in the corporate environments. They dressed manly, they became much more angular, cut the hair short, and assumed more male power over expressions of power. Mm-hmm. And then we're seeing that the more that women or men step into and connect with their authentic power, the less that any of those externals matter. Like, it doesn't matter. What matters is like knowing who we are in the depth of our within, because that's where that freedom comes from. Not just walking in our power rather than walking in this defensive mode, like arms crossed and just waiting for the next shoe to drop and like in constant state of DEFCON 1. We feel that's powerful. And sometimes, I'm going to sneak in that first punch just in case, preemptively. Like, that's no way to live. That's not powerful. That's like living in a prison, just in a constant state of anxiety and stress. Like this, like opening ourselves in relationship to life, that's powerful. That's like an attitude of like, no matter what happens, I got this. Yeah. That's powerful. And there's nothing to prove. Right. So we can be quote unquote gentle and know externally, and the power's inside. Like when you need it, it's there.
Right. When something, hey, this way, it's always there. It's not like you don't have that directive power, so to speak. It's still there when it's needed. It will rise up when you let it, and then it can do its magic, right? In so many different ways. So Christian, I'm just having such a great time here today with you. I'm sure it's going to be people are interested and wanting to check out your book and they buy your book and whatnot. So where can they check out about your book?
Thanks so much for asking that, Dan. The book is available in Amazon or wherever books are sold. So if they want to order it from the local bookstore, they can do that. In terms of how to get in touch with me, probably the best way is to go to my website, which is soulfulpower.com. And right now we've got an offer where if somebody signs up to be on my email list, which, as you know, it's really easy to unsubscribe at any point if you want to. But when they do, they'll get a sample chapter from the book. They'll get some power practices that are designed to apply those teachings to our lives so that it doesn't stay at the level of information. It actually turns into transformation, which is what we want. And a guided meditation on trust, which is really supportive and timely in these days of chaos and uncertainty.
Great. And what's the URL again where they can get that?
Soulfulpower.com.
Soulfulpower.com it is. All right, great. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, if you're wanting to connect more with that, definitely check that out and take advantage. So Christian, this time of the show where I like to go ahead and do a little tuning in with my guests, do a little energy scan. You ready to receive?
Thank you so much. I really appreciate that.
Sure thing, sure thing. All right, great. So let me go ahead and just tune in. I just hear what comes through, and let's see what wants to come through right now. So I get this like soulful kingship, like getting this like strong like soulful kingship. Um so what do I want to say about that? Let me tune in a little deeper on that. Yeah, I think it's just really relaxing more into this authority and power that you have. Because of course, hey, I teach what I'm meant to learn, and I find that's true with everybody, and so you're deepening with it, right? So it's like deepening in this connection, and because part of you, might want to give more. Part of you might want to withhold. Part of you might want to fight somewhere. Part of you might want to say, "Oh, chill out." But like this kingful, soulful power, like you said, like it's that true power, right? That we have, and I see that for you, and like just to be able to you know like trust what we just said, like even more, like okay, it's there, it's always there. I can let this be really easy. I don't, because there's a lot of that energy inside of you that I'm noticing as I'm tuning in. Again, it may not be nearly what it was, I'm sure, 1,000,000%, not nearly what it was, but like that part that does want to maybe fight a little bit more, like right, like get going. And you've just really moved a lot with that. But like it's just like a little thing, little subtle thing, but it's still running in there, right? So sometimes it wants to come in and go this way and that way and the other way. So but you're doing a good job though of staying centered overall. But just really realizing that it's okay to be in your kingship, I guess is what I'm trying to say. That it's okay, that it's not the old associations of being a king, but as being in that kingly enlightened energy, if that makes sense. So let me see if I get one or two other more things. Oh, wow. Okay. So creativity. So I get that. There might be times when you feel a little like dry when it comes to creativity. Like it's, oh, I don't know what's next and what's new, and but then you're a person that will get the transits of downloads. So it'll come and it'll be like, oh my god, I got something huge. It might be like a whole book all at once, right? Like it's so I'm just getting like, just keep trusting that, I guess is what I'm trying to say. Like keep trusting it. Oh yeah, it'll come in its perfect time. It'll come a whole big package probably at once a lot of times, or you'll just, yeah, like it just channels through you is the feeling I get. So everything is about letting it be so much easier is what I keep hearing with your energy. Yeah, just to look at the power center, just like, yeah, just, and I see how you've worked on it, like letting go of control and all that stuff and the pushing, and yeah, it's lovely. So those are just a few of the things I'm getting, but you have a visionary insight that's strong for other people too. Like I get, like you can see someone's vision. You can get a sense of the vision, and you can champion their vision, and so you can connect them with that, and like kind of hold them in their strength to move forward and see that come into fruition. So that's the last thing I want to share for today. So you have that kind of, it's some of your soulful power right there.
Thank you, Dan, and thank you for having me on the show. I appreciate that, and appreciate the opportunity, and appreciate the work that you do that helps other people.
Thank you. Thank you. And if you all want to check me out, you can go to yoursacredpurpose.com and get your free Meditate to Make Money meditation. It helps open up your energy and your chakras and whatnot to receive energies and connection, so you don't feel like that little baseball anymore. You feel like you're in the stadium. You are the stadium and beyond. Get that energy going and start allowing the downloads to happen and start meditating and making money, letting your purpose unfold. So yoursacredpurpose.com, and there's opportunities for energy scanning there as well. And so Christian, this is where I go ahead and give you the last words and the last things that you want to share with the audience today.
Well, just the hope that if I was able to step into my power, I know that anybody can. Like that there is a way that we can heal all the traumas from our past and step into our power authentically, uncompromisingly, in a way that is a match and that is congruent with who we are. So thank you. And I love that last visual that you gave about to me, I call that the spiritual royalty. And as we step more into the stadium, that's what starts emerging from us is that energy and experience of being spiritual royalty, which we are.
Yes. Thank you, Christian, for coming on. We are that spiritual royalty. All right, we're meant for it. And that's where all the good stuff is, actually, in my opinion. And that's why I've got Spiritual Rockstar, right? That's kind of what it's all about. So so it's so grateful to have you on. And everybody keep on tuning in, and we'll keep on rocking it here at Spiritual Rockstar Podcast. Till next time, everyone. Goodbye for now. Spiritual Rockstar Podcast. Stay tuned for our next upcoming new episodes each Wednesday and Saturday. Please be sure to subscribe, rate, and review to help us to serve you best. As a reminder, you can get your free Meditate and Make Money meditation at www.yoursacredpurpose.com to rock your sacred purpose. Goodbye for now, everybody.